It was almost midnight when Ngozi heard the knock. 3 slow knocks, then silence. Her heart jumped in her chest like a student that just saw exam results online. Nobody visited at that hour in Agbani village. She tiptoed to the door, and there it was, a brown envelope, edges wet from the night dew. With her name written in neat handwriting, she picked it up with trembling hands. Inside, one line was written, "Do not go to the river tomorrow, you will not return." Ngozi was 24, a school teacher who had returned to the village after her father's sudden death. The villagers liked her, polite, soft-spoken, with a quiet strength in her eyes. But there was one thing no one knew. Her father's death has been too sudden, too strange, and she was quietly searching for answers. The letter made no sense. The river was where she went to every Saturday morning to wash clothes. Why would someone warn her not to go? She showed it to her cousin, Nkem, who laughed nervously. "Ngozi, maybe it's just a prank. Forget it." But that night, she couldn't sleep. Around 1 a.m., she heard it. Low voices outside her window. 2 men, one said, "She must not find it before we do." The next morning, Ngozi went to the market early, trying to act normal. As she passed the yam stall, she noticed a man watching her, a stranger. He had a scar running down his cheek and didn't look away when she met his gaze. She quickened her step, but he began to follow her. Ngozi dodged into Mama Ibuka's provision store, pretending to browse. When she looked outside, the scared man was gone, and in his place, a small boy stood, holding another envelope. He walked straight to her and handed it over. She opened it, and her breath caught. Inside was a photograph, black and white. It was her father, standing beside a man she had never seen before, and behind them, the river. On the back of the photograph, someone had written in red ink, "They are watching you. Do not trust the one closest to you." Ngozi's hand shook. She turned to look for the boy, but he was gone, vanished into the busy market. The sound of rushing water filled her ears, even though the river was miles away. The sun rose, pale and weak, behind thick clouds. Ngozi stood at the edge of the path leading to the river, holding her laundry tightly to her chest. Her heart pounded, but she took a step forward. The villagers believed the river had a spirit, a woman with long hair who only appeared at dawn. Ngozi had never seen her, but today the air felt heavier, as if the river already knew she was coming. The water was unusually still. As Ngozi bent to rinse a cloth, a chill ran up her spine. A voice, soft, almost a sigh, brushed against her ear. "Leave before the drums." She froze. No one was there. The forest on the other side of the river was silent, too silent. Then from under the water, something drifted into view. A leather pouch tied with red thread. She pulled the pouch from the water. It was heavier than it looked. Inside, she found small bones wrapped in black cloth. A folded piece of paper. The paper was wet, but she could still make out the words. "The debt is not yet paid. We will come for the bloodline." Her stomach turned like a student that has just failed WAEC. The handwriting was her father's. In the distance, deep from the forest, drums began to beat. Slow at first, then faster, louder. The villagers never played drums in the morning. Ngozi dropped the pouch and stepped back, but the water splashed violently as if something beneath was rising. Through the splashing, she saw it. A pale, human-like face just under the surface, eyes wide open, hair floating like dark weights. The drum stopped. Ngozi stumbled back onto the shore. Someone grabbed her hand from behind. It was Nkem, her cousin. "You shouldn't be here," Nkem hissed, glancing at the pouch still on the ground. When Ngozi demanded to know why, Nkem's eyes moved quickly to the room and back, like a thief checking for witnesses. Then he finally spoke. Because that face saw, it looks exactly like your mother. The wind cried, carrying the scent of rain and something sharp like blood. That night, Ngozi lay awake, the drums from the morning echoing in her ears. Through the thin walls of her mother's hut, she heard whispers, not one, but two. One was her mother's, the other deep, inhuman. The third night is when we collect. Make her ready. Ngozi's breath caught. She pressed herself against the wall, listening. But when she pushed the door open, her mother was alone, staring at the fire with lifeless eyes. The next morning, Ngozi went to the village square to speak to Elder Okoro, the oldest man in Agbani. At the mention of the pouch at the river, his face went pale. Your father made a pact with the Miri Nwa, the river child. It grants fortunes for 3 generations, but when the debt comes, it takes blood from the living. Ngozi's voice trembled. Then why did he look like my mother? Okoro lowered his voice. Because she is already marked, and you are next. Ngozi ran home, panic boiling in her chest. Her mother was gone. The fire pit was cold. On the mat where she slept was a wet handprint. Long, slender fingers too long to be human. And on the wall, written in dripping red mud, when the drums stop, the door will open. The sky turned black before sunset. Ngozi locked the doors, but the air inside the hut felt heavy, thick with the smell of the river. The drum started, slow, steady. Then without warning, they stopped. From the darkness outside came the sound of water spilling, though there was a rain. Something slid under the door, a wet strand of long black hair. The door locked, made a noise as if something was trying to get in. Ngozi grabbed the machete, her hands shaking. The door burst open, water poured in, flooding the floor in seconds. Standing in the doorway was the river woman, skin pale as moonlight, mouth opening far too wide, eyes black and endless. She stepped forward, water spinning around her feet, and whispered, "Your father's debt is due." Ngozi blinked and the hut was gone. She was standing ankle deep in the river, fog coiling around her. The water was warm, almost too warm, and the moon hung low, red like a bleeding wound. From somewhere in the mist came her mother's voice, "Ngozi, come home." She turned and saw her mother on the shore, smiling, but her feet were missing, fading into the mist like smoke. She tried to move toward her, but every step sank deeper, the water rising up her legs. Suddenly, the surface reflected not her face, but the river woman's face. "This is not your world anymore," she said. Ngozi screamed and the fog shifted. Now she was in her childhood bedroom. Her father sat on the edge of the bed, back turned to her. When he spoke, his voice was like 2 voices layered together. We thought we could keep it from you, but you were always meant to pay. The walls began to drip water as if the river had seeped inside. Her father's head turned unnaturally far until his chin rested on his back. His smile was wrong. There is only one way to be free. Drown the one you love most. A door appeared behind him, made of black wood. It moved like it was alive. Ngozi grabbed the handle and turned it open. She was back in the river, but dozens of figures stood around her in the water. Some had no eyes, some had gaping teeth, some had gaping mouths filled with river stones. All whispered her name. The river woman emerged from their midst, her voice echoing inside Ngozi's skull. "You will drown yourself before dawn, or they will drown for you." Ngozi's chest tightened. She couldn't tell if she was breathing air or water anymore. Somewhere in the fog, she saw Nkem, hands bound, eyes wide, calling her name. The whispers grew louder, and the river woman pressed a wet blade into Ngozi's hand. "Choose him or you." Ngozi screamed and woke up on the floor of her hut, drenched, holding the same wet blade. Ngozi sat in the corner of the hut, blade still dripping. Through the window, she saw Nkem walking toward her, and when he stepped inside, his clothes were dry, yet water dripped from his hair, leaving puddles where he stood. "You were supposed to choose me, Ngozi." She blinked and was gone. The door was still closed. She ran outside, desperate for fresh air. But the village was silent, empty, no people, no animals. Even the air felt heavy. Then she noticed every hut, every tree, every path was reflected in a sheet of water beneath her feet, as if the entire village was floating on the river. She heard voices from below the surface, laughing, weeping, calling her name. A man appeared from the fog, holding the same photograph of her father she'd seen in the beginning. Half his face was human, the other half scaled like a fish. "Your father didn't die, Ngozi. He was taken, and you are walking the same path." She tried to ask how to stop it, but the man's mouth filled with water and his body collapsed into the river beneath her feet, water swallowing him whole. Ngozi's ear rang. Suddenly, she was back in her hut, exactly where she'd been at the start, blade in hand. Outside the window, Nkem approached again, dripping water. She screamed and ran outside and found the empty village again, and the man with the scared face. The lope repeated again and again. Each time something was slightly different, the sky darker, the water higher, and the whispers louder. Ngozi noticed something. In the reflection beneath her feet, her whole body wasn't standing still, it was sinking. Her reflected self stared up at her with black endless eyes and smiled. "Stop fighting, you are already mine." Water rushed up from below, swallowing her in a single breath. Darkness, then a knock at the door. 3 slow knocks. Ngozi woke to find herself in a place that wasn't the village, yet looked exactly like it. Only this one was submerged waist deep in black water, and the sky painted with red lightning. From between the huts, her father emerged, alive but pale as bone, chains of river weed dragging from his waist. "You came for the truth, now you must pay for it." Before she could speak, the water around them began to boil. The river woman rose from the water, taller than any human, her hair moving like living snakes. Behind her, the spirit of those claimed by the depth, dozens, maybe hundreds, watched silently. "Your father promised your life in exchange for his own freedom. You tried to run, now I will take you both." The truth struck Ngozi like a blade. Her father hadn't died, he had bargained her away. The river woman handed Ngozi the same wet blade she had seen in her dream. "Spill his blood and you will walk free. Refuse and you will enjoy my waters forever." Her father's eyes pleaded. "Ngozi, my pikin, please, she will drag you under. End it." The spirits began to chant, the water rising around her. Ngozi said a silent prayer, lifted the blade, but turned it on herself. "You will take neither of us." The river woman screamed, the sound shaking the world. The water exploded upward, swallowing everything. Ngozi sank into deep darkness, but instead of cold, she felt warm. Hands, dozens of them, pulled her upward. The faces of the spirits surrounded her, whispering, "The depths is broken. Ngozi woke on the river bank at dawn. The pouch of bones lay beside her, empty. Her father was gone. In the village, no one remembered him. No one remembered the river drums. Only Ngozi carried the memory and the faint sound of rushing water that sometimes followed her in the wind. That night, she lay in the bed. She heard it. 3 slow knocks at the door, but she did not open it. Like, share, comment your thoughts and follow for more.